right, Noah Eagle from NBC Sports, Sedano.
I mean, we've got our own Don Pardo here, Noah. I mean, that's what Chris Morales hears. He introduces us and introduces the guests every segment. It's great.
Well, yeah, I was always under the impression, first of all, that Cap wore makeup to do this show. So that's the first place. I will be struggling to get the term Cappy Lappy now out of my head until game time. So looking forward to all that comes with it, but happy opening night to both of you.
Yes, sir. Right back to you. And Noah, yes, today as I walk around the court and I give the fans sort of that insight as to what's going on before the game, who are the big stars that are here, I stop by and I say hello. Be prepared. You will be getting a tap on the shoulder, and we will be sharing some love tonight at your booth, and you will make an appearance on the Cappy Lappy.
That is what is called big for the brand right there. Absolutely massive. Love to hear it.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, people need to see that hair. You've got the greatest hair in the game right now, Eagle. I am so jealous of you. I watched this. We were watching this behind-the-scenes video you posted on Instagram the other day, and I'm like, look at this kid's hair. It's unbelievable how good his hair is right now. Is your dad just incredibly jealous of your hair?
Well, the problem is every time I use a different product in the hair, he will shoot me a message and say, "So what you going with now?" Just out of curiosity. What's that? Is that a hairspray? No, you're going texturizing powder.
Pomade.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a texturizing powder guy now. It's
okay.
a
Look at that.
Honestly.
Oh, really? Texturizing powder.
I've been a pomade guy for well over a decade, but I may venture out if that's the case.
That's interesting. You say that.
I was
new
about
to
to say come to the powder side, but that sounds wrong. So
well, I mean, on this show and in LA, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
Wow, pomade though. I started with mousse. I moved to gel, and now I'm into this pomade thing. I kind of like it,
Yeah, there you go.
But the powder. Noah.
Yeah, there you go. So now you have something new to look at. At, Cappy.
Yeah.
So Noah, before we get to basketball with you, you've spent the last 2 weeks doing SC football on NBC. For those that don't know, Noah does the primetime game on NBC every week, the Notre Dame game, and prior to that, the Michigan game. My opinion on them is interesting because I'm fairly high on them. I feel like they're good, but they're like a roster cycle short of being really good, like in like the elite potential category. How have you viewed them as you've had them the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think that they've made strides. I think that this is better just overall vibe, team, and top to bottom than probably the last 2 seasons. That first year, and Lincoln Riley told us he felt that first year was an anomaly, kind of just came out of nowhere, and they didn't expect to be as good as they were. And so then as a result, the expectation is, well, you'll be that good every year and you'll be 11-1 in the regular season every year and competing for the college football playoff every year. And that's the eventual goal, but he did feel like it was going to be a process. And I even remember talking to him that first year he was in LA, and he kind of said similar things of we're way ahead of schedule and it's going to take time to really become consistent here. And so what he was saying was not just the roster construction, which has taken time, and especially the offensive line, which we've gotten to see some of that depth that they've built up this year with some of the injuries they've had. And the hope is Killian O'Connor, their starting center, can come back and they can really be whole up there in the near future. And then the tight ends, he mentioned how important that is in his offense, and now having 2 competent tight ends that can be in there. But I think the bigger part was the mentality and building the right mentality within the team. Not just in terms of like Big Ten play and physicality, which is clearly improved from what it was, but more so the idea of expecting to win every week. And he just felt like when he got to SC, it wasn't the case versus when he took over at Oklahoma, it was built in. And so I do think that's a legitimate thing. You hear this adage all the time, you have to learn how to win. It's a skill, winning games consistently. And I think that's the skill they're trying to build up. Last week was obviously disappointing for them. And I think that one was at least somewhat expected. You go to Notre Dame, bad weather, all of the factors that come with it. Notre Dame's desperate at this point. They've got to win out, and if they do, they'll likely be in the playoff. I think the one that was more disappointing was the Illinois game because it just felt so similar to last season where you have a lead in the fourth quarter and you can't get a stop to win the game. That's the type of stuff that they're trying to move forward with. They did a great job against Michigan, and now we get to see how they respond again.
Yep, you're right. I mean, they did, and the Michigan game probably built in some confidence. Like, look what Michigan did to us last year where they steamrolled us for nearly 300 yards on the ground. but we were able to shut down that Michigan running game. But on the other hand, Noah, then you come back against Notre Dame, and what does Notre Dame do? They put up 306 rushing yards. So, the issue for Lincoln Riley, I don't necessarily think is on the offensive side. It continues to be on the defensive side, and in particular on the defensive line. Well, what do you make of that situation?
Yeah, look, you're correct. I also think that you've got to at least take it for what it is. And that's why I said the Illinois game was more disappointing, because Illinois gashed them on the ground when it mattered most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Michigan, they held to a season low in rushing. Part of that is Michigan was one-dimensional. Bryce Underwood was missing throws. He's a freshman that's still learning the position, still learning how to play, and learning how to be explosive in their pass game. And the wide receivers at Notre Dame are just far superior than what Michigan has. And so the threat of C.J. Carr and the threat on the outsides and the threat of the passing game out of the backfield is just better. And so they're much more balanced offensively. And so you can't load up as much on the run, because you've got to make sure you're ready for the pass. And I think Notre Dame took advantage of it. But at the same time, what I'll say is you go back and Notre Dame lost those first two games, but Miami, who I know lost this week, and maybe the sentiment's different now, but one of the best defenses in the country, and with a freshman quarterback in his first career start after a first half where they basically had training wheels on him the entire first half, admittedly, at Notre Dame. They unleashed C.J. Carr in the second half, and that offense was impressive. And then week 2 against Texas A&M, or week 3, but their second game, they put up 40 points against A&M, who's got a defense in the SEC that currently is undefeated. So I understand the frustration, but that's just what Notre Dame does to everybody. And Jeremiah Love's a Heisman candidate for a reason. I mean, he might be the best running back in college football. So, yeah, frustrating, but that's why I think it's still all in front of them. And if they can go on the road and beat Oregon, which is a tall task late this season, that changes a lot of viewpoints, because that is kind of the team in their area that they're still chasing. And Dan Lanning is proving that you can be physical on the West Coast. You can go and play Big Ten football and win. And so for USC, opportunity's there. They've got to grasp it.
Yeah. I would just say just one quick thing, George.
Yeah.
The one thing about this USC team is if you're not going to be like amazing on offense, and they're good, but they obviously made a huge mistake. That ridiculous fumble on what was going to be Lemon passing the ball. That was
it was just a stupid play. Lincoln called it a stupid play afterwards. It was a dumb play.
But the other thing is that when you're in these kinds of games, special teams play such a huge role, and you just can't give up a kickoff return for a touchdown. That ultimately becomes a huge difference in the game.
Sure, the margins are small. I don't think there's any question. Noah, let's flip to basketball. You're calling tonight on NBC. Warriors, Lakers. Let's talk about the Lakers a little bit. Just kind of your thoughts and views on this team. Luka looks great, obviously. There is no LeBron. What do you see as a potential ceiling for this team?
I mean, look, I think what we saw is, the first thing that I look at is I don't necessarily think that this version of this team is going to be the version of the team at the end of the season. We've seen the Lakers have a clear willingness to constantly tinker and make sure that they have the right pieces around their centerpiece, which is now very clearly Luka Doncic. And you mentioned how great he looks, just the 30 pounds that he claims he lost this offseason, clearly has made a difference. Just look at what he did in Eurobasket and look at what he's looked like in preseason. The burst is just clearly different from when he came to LA last year. And part of that is also just being healthier than he was when he first got to LA last year. But we know that he's one of the great floor raisers in the NBA. So to start with that, their floor is probably just high considering he's going to be on the court consistently. And then I think a lot of it will depend on the auxiliary pieces. Is Austin Reeves going to be able to take another leap forward after averaging 20 points per game last year? Is Gabe Vincent's health and impact going to be as legitimate as J.J. Redick has been talking about? Is DeAndre Ayton ready to be a legitimate centerpiece within what the Lakers are going to want to do on a night-in, night-out basis? Is his motor going to be better than what it looked like it was in Portland? Can Marcus Smart turn back the clock and be the Marcus Smart of old? If all of these ifs are in the Lakers' favor, if Jared Vanderbilt stays healthy for a full season, if Dalton Knecht looks like a legitimate player every single night, well, then their ceiling is very high because you've got a top 5 player in the world. And if LeBron comes back sooner rather than later, somebody who's still playing at an elite level, who sees the game, who's arguably the smartest player in the history of the game. You go through all of these checkpoints, and J.J. Redick proved his coaching chops last year. Their ceiling's incredibly high. The problem is, and you guys know it as well as anybody, the Western Conference is, I can't remember it being more loaded than it is right now.
It's unforgivable. You can't have a slip up. Yeah.
Correct. And it's hard to fathom that last year was so difficult as it was. You know, the Warriors end up winning 48 games and they were in the play-in tournament. Like, that's brutal. And so it's probably even better this year because I look at a team like San Antonio, Dallas, didn't even make the playoffs. They're going to be heavy contributors to what the Western Conference picture is going to look like. And so for the Lakers, to your point, George, you have to go out there every night and play at a high level. And so that's going to fall the onus mostly on Luka, but the rest of the pieces have to make sure that they're in line.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point, which is it's never a good feeling going into a season when everything you just said, Noah, is if this, if, and there were probably 4 or 5 ifs in there. And so what you're banking on is that all those ifs go on to the positive side, and chances are that's not likely going to happen. So even if you're just 50-50 on 5 or 6 ifs, now you got problems on your hands with all those ifs that you just laid out.
I do think that's the case with a lot of the teams in the West, and honestly a lot of the teams in the NBA. But outside of Oklahoma City, which we know what they are, and probably Denver, even with their newer additions, I think they're just substantially better on paper than what they were last year. And Nikola Jokic is not an if guy. As long as you have him, you're going to be competitive every night. Outside of those two teams, like even Houston, we see what their starting lineup is rumored to be for tonight. They don't have a traditional point guard in their starting unit, and they don't have a ton of three-point shooting in their starting unit. So, yes, you add Durant, but you lose Fred VanVleet for likely the season. They're full of ifs, in my opinion. The Clippers are full of ifs. The Lakers, as mentioned. The Mavericks, I mean, who knows with Kyrie Irving? Right. What does that look like? How is Cooper Flag going to fare as a main ball handler? The Spurs, can Victor Wembanyama stay healthy? Because if he can, they could easily be a top 4 seed if De'Aaron Fox and if Dylan Harper and if Stephon Castle all blend together. And you go on and on and on. I mean, I think every team outside of those top 2 in the West feel like they're full of ifs. But if those ifs hit for any of them, look out. They're going to be right there in the mix.
Noah, before we let you go, man, listen, you know how proud I am of you, and, you know, you've called the Olympics, you're calling, you know, Saturday Night Football on college football on NBC, but I know how much you love the NBA, okay? Like, you've grown up around it. What is this like for you? Opening night, NBC is back in the fold. You're calling the Lakers Warriors. For you, you know, you've done a lot, as we've already outlined. Like, where does this one rank for you as much as you love the NBA?
Yeah, George, I appreciate you. And you're right. The NBA, for me as a kid, was probably my biggest passion within sports. I was the guy who would go to the Nets games when they went 12-70, and they were using me as a seat filler because nobody was in the arena. So I would have to go sit courtside so that somebody would look like they were there to watch as Jan Leanne and Jarvis Hayes went to battle. That was me. I was all in on it. So, yeah, this is a huge, huge deal for me. You know, some of my seminal sports memories occurred when the NBA on NBC was wrapping up its last tenure. You know, for the Nets, their first finals run with Jason Kidd as they got swept by the Lakers was on NBC. And so it just floods back all those memories. And it's more so now for me just, one, getting to do the games is great, but getting to work with incredible people is just an extra added bonus. And it's a lot of pinch me types. We got a lot of Hall of Famers and a lot of guys that I grew up really idolizing. And so getting to work with all of them is going to be pretty cool.
And you get to do the Cappy Lappy today.
Don't forget about that, pal.
Happy Lappy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I got to make sure I limit how much I say it.
Well, I'll probably hit you up with, and I don't remember where I recently saw this, but it was you and your dad. I always love when you guys do interviews together. And you were giving him a hard time, or maybe he was talking about how people stop him in the airport and they only want to ask him about interception. Yeah. Where was that? Where did I see that? I don't even know.
That was NFL Films. NFL Films did a wonderful job with that and showed our calls of the same game. And I go picked off, and he goes, intercepted. And apparently he likes multiple syllable words, he said he feels better with. I try to go less syllables, less chance to mess up.
The last time we had your pops on was shortly after that video went viral when you and Sarah Kustok were doing a Nets game and you were talking about growing up around him and like, you know, how you basically imitated him, impersonated him. And he was laughing, but you could just tell he was like, all right, enough of this kid already. I've had enough of him. Okay. He's outing me here. I don't need this.
I think I look in the mirror. I look in the mirror and I say enough of this kid. Already. So yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Hey, by the way, before you get out of here, were you impressed with my Pitt Panthers over your Syracuse Orange this past weekend?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
you had to take that shot on the way out.
Sneak it in.
Come on. Listen, once Steve Angeli went down, it's just been nonstop downhill blizzard. So, zero impressed.
Listen, you know, Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach, famously said last year, winners get washed. You know, he's going to be pretty dirty this year. Yeah, right now with the way things are going.
I would maybe try to plug the nose if you're around Cuse right
now. Noah, you're the best, buddy. I wish I could see you today, but I'll be flying to my game tomorrow with your boy Ryan Rucco and Jay Billis because we're doing Mavs Spurs. But have a great call. I'll be watching, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon, buddy. And enjoy the Cappy Lappy.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you tonight.
All right. Well, to quote Rooks, then, you bet.
All right, see you, pal. There he is. The great Noah Eagle. Love that kid.